Buckle up for the Money Vehicle Movement podcast. I'm Jedediah Collins, your host and driving instructor on this journey through speaking the language of money. Twists, turns, and avoiding those money potholes, we'll cover it all on our road trip to financial freedom. Engines ready? Then let's drive. What if I told you there was a monster out there that was 10 times scarier for your money than taxes? This monster is the subject of our episode today here on the Money Vehicle Movement podcast. But before we jump in, let's get some current events of how this concept of financial education is going to tie into your world today. Chapter 8 discusses cybersecurity. And our question today from a current event is, did you know that Carrie Fisher died during the filming of the last Star Wars movie? The actress, made famous in the 1970s for becoming Princess Leia, passed during the filming, but was able to be in the film through an artificially intelligent AI body double. The company actually went to Carrie Fisher's family and asked if she could be completed as an AI double to continue with the movie, which they agreed to. As you look at that concept, we start to really question what is the possibility of this AI tool. Now, some Star Wars diehards obviously claimed they could tell that it was an AI double, but still an amazing feat. And today, actors across the world, especially the ones specifically working for the massive agency of the CAA, are going through a vault where they are having every muscle in their face mapped to create a version of themselves. This newly created face and being could then be used for said actor to be theoretically in two places at once, and the average person wouldn't be able to tell the difference on screen. This is going to be a vital importance as we start to look at our cybersecurity defense, how this ties into Chapter 8. You have no idea how to verify and validate incoming messages, this phishing attack on a day-to-day basis. You are going to need to begin to defend yourself online, proactively taking actions, asking yourselves those 5 questions. And now as you look at any form of media or any form of message inbound coming to you, you need to pause and truly ask where it's coming from, if it is even for you. Why are they asking that? Where is the fire? And are you really that lucky? Identifying your sequence to defend yourself is a vital form of financial education today. As we look at questions for the classroom, Chapter 8, how does this new AI development, where they can literally duplicate human beings, play into cyber scams that you should be aware of today? Question 2, if you got a video message from someone you know, would you start to hesitate to believe it was actually from them? Or how would you differentiate between real and created? And last but not least, would you create an AI body double of yourself? I think that's an interesting question of the day. Would you go down that road to creating a virtual duplicate of yourself? All right. Subject number 2, current event number 2, have to be able to start talking about student loans. Today, we're going to talk about the income-based repayment plans. In COVID, over the last few years, some of these have gone from $50 a month and are now escalating to almost $500 a month. This is the first time since March of 2020. Do you remember before the pandemic, March of 2020, when my life, along with most people in the global world, lives changed? The pandemic began and millions were forced to make their student loan payments. So as we look at the last 3 or 4 years, we have not been forcing student loan repayments, and that is wearing off. Yes, some are being forgiven, and we will always dive deeper into that. But with several legislations proposed, failed, passed, there is a lot of confusion. And currently, the Biden administration has seen that the presidential election in 2024 is going to be a very interesting subject around student loans and how the president is going to handle them in the future. The Biden administration's current plan was to wipe out $20,000 of student loans for people earning under $125,000 a year. This was struck down by the Supreme Court, and since that striking down, the Biden administration has still wiped out $130 billion for over 3.5 million voters. I'm sure some of you are wondering, how can the United States government, how can the Biden administration wipe out and forgive student loans? And that's a great question. It's because the United States government is the lender, the ones who issued the loan. Now we've seen these loans, student debt going over $1.5 trillion. And when you realize and see that the United States government is the loan holder, it really starts to change some of the questions you can ask yourself. We discussed Chapter 2, the concept of interest and the lendee lendor and why interest is being paid. And one of the issues with student loans is that they're companies who service these loans outside of the United States government. So the U.S. is the government holder. The government is the holder of the loan, but there are third-party companies who actually service these loans outside of their loan holder. The problem comes when you hear 24 million people started COVID with one company being this third party serving their loan, and are starting now 24 million people now in 2024 with a different company servicing that loan. That is a massive and drastic change. What this means is new accounts needed to be set up at this new agency. New rules are needed to be agreed to. And in many cases, people's information was not even transferred over correctly. If you compound that with the never-ending debate of what loans have been forgiven, some have, some haven't, some are in question, some are in process. What loans will be forgiven in the future? Should I just try to not pay them as much as possible? Can I get by a little bit more and more and more? And always, with the account transfer issues, we even question how much our loan balance is actually for. As you look at student loans, such a question, such a debate, some questions for your classroom this week. As we connect income chapter to chapter 2, as we look at our loan structures. The first, what is the most amount of money you would take out for student loans? That's a question for everybody. As you look at that opportunity, how do you begin to weigh it today? What is the most amount of money you would take out for student loans? Question number 2. What are your thoughts knowing now that the United States government is the holder of $1.5 trillion of student loans? What is your knee-jerk and gut reaction to that? Question 3, why is it still a good financial decision to go to college? We look at this term and this idea of opportunity cost. There are tons of careers that require you to go and get a 4-year or higher education degree. What is worth taking on that debt as you look at the opportunity to go choose to become a doctor? Is it worthwhile going into debt to become a doctor down the road versus a trade or a skill or something that you can go get paid for today without accumulating the debt? As you look at many CEOs, entrepreneurs, Elon Musk didn't go to college or even graduate high school. We see this term, college dropout becomes entrepreneur. And as you look at that, that is not going to cloud your judgment or cloud your decision, because those are the unique, the unicorns, the one in a million. And if you want to become that, you have to begin by believing you can become that. But what is the question around how much it costs and what is the reward as we start to look at our choice to go to college? We're going to circle back to this as it connects directly to our inflation subject of the day. Third and final current event and current discussion is around, and again, staying in debt, but more consumer debt than education debt, the buy now, pay later concept and philosophy. Now, buy now, pay later, BNPL for short, is a different strategy than traditional credit. but it is a similar concept. You can purchase something today without cash and pay it off at a later date. Companies like Afterpay, Affirm, and Klarna boomed during the pandemic over the last 3 or 4 years and have seen an increase of over 400% in their buy now, pay later companies. But as we look at the big difference between buy now, pay later structures and credit cards, we have to see the difference in the type of loans that they represent. With a credit card, you have a revolving line of credit. And with buy now, pay later, you have an installment loan. Now, Chapter 2 will focus deeper on the installment loan concept, and Chapter 5 will dive into your credit. But for now, understand that buy now, pay later comes with a set payment structure, whereas a credit card, you have a changing and evolving payment structure on a month-to-month basis. Also, with buy now, pay later being a newer offering, there is still not a lot of regulation around this industry. Both credit cards and buy now, pay later can have extremely high interest rates, all the way up to 30+%. We now see and know in the United States, the average interest rate on a credit card is over 20%, meaning average being over 20, some are in that 30 range. Yes, on buy now, pay later, you can get all the way down to possibly zero, but ask yourself where and why that debt is being given. If you're not being charged, how are they making money there? All the way up to buy now, pay laters can be up in the 30 to 35% as well. Both structures, buy now, pay later, or credit, can cause people to break the golden rule. What is that golden rule? Spend less than you make and focus on what you keep. Having these tools can help you or encourage you even to break that golden rule process. Questions for your classroom. Have you used buy now, pay later, and what did you purchase with a BNPL structure? Do you think buy now, pay later or credit is safer to you today? Do you think buy now, pay later is a safer structure and system than a credit card? And the last final question, this is a general one. With credit card debt in the trillions, student loan debt in the trillions, credit card debt in the trillions, do you think your peers, the future of our country, will use buy now, pay later, or will use credit cards more in the future? Those are our current events today. And now let's dive into Income Part 3, Inflation. Section 3 of our income chapter is the monster eating your money, known as inflation. Now, we know money is not backed by gold or anything tangible, really. And with this understanding, we can begin to understand how prices can increase even when there is no change to a product or service, almost an increase like it was magic. Think of an example. Do you remember the first time you noticed the price of something you wanted had increased? I remember vending machines when I was young having all these items listed for only a quarter. And then in what it felt like only a few months later, we began to see those same items were now 50 cents, some even 75 cents or $1. Have you noticed now that arcade games today are using cards instead of change? That is not just coincidence. That is so you do not even realize or see how much the game actually costs. Some games now are no longer a quarter, 50 cents. Some are $1, $1.50 just to play at an arcade. This is an example of inflation. And yes, we can look at the definition and the terms of inflation being the purchasing power of your dollar decreasing in value. So many get confused by thinking it's the cost of things going up, when in reality, inflation is the purchasing power of your dollar decreasing. A little bit different in reality. Simply put, though, inflation is going to make it feel like things are getting more expensive. And the truth is, it doesn't matter if you are aware of the price increase or not. Everything in your life is going to get more expensive. Just think about how much it costs for you to go to a dinner and a movie compared to your parents and compared to your future kids. In 2023, inflation was around 3% year over year. This was driven mainly by our shelter rising 6.5%. Now, a 3% increase overall is very close to what the Federal Reserve, the Fed's target for inflation and stable pricing is, where they aim for a 2% increase year over year. The Fed, again, not part of the United States government, originated by it, but is an independent outside source. If you compare the United States' 3% year over year gain to what Argentina is currently going through, where year over year they have experienced a 150% inflation increase, 150% inflation increase. Before we discuss what drives that 3% increase, you need to pause and start to think about what happens in hyperinflation and why even the Fed, our government, our economy sees inflation as something that is not only needed, but is a required part of our world today. So you're probably wondering, well, why does the Fed have that 2% target? Why do we want prices to go up? The first reason is this is going to keep businesses profitable. And if businesses are profitable, that means the economy at large and all investment returns will be profitable along with it. The first purpose of inflation is to increase in prices and increase in profits. That means increase in payouts. The second reason inflation can be seen as a positive is it keeps people from waiting on lower prices before they spend. We live in a consumer-driven place where we need to spend money. We need people to walk into the mall and walk into stores and buy things. If you think prices will go down in the near future, you're more likely to wait for those prices to decrease to go and spend, impacting our entire economic cycle. So as you look at what is actually happening here, you are being encouraged to spend today because you believe prices are going to go nowhere but higher. That is a good payout for the overall economy, maybe not necessarily your financial plan, but it is a good connection. The third reason inflation can be seen as a positive is it is going to keep us from entering deflation. Deflation is where things feel better in the short run. Things got less expensive, yay. But in the long run, this is not good. The fact is there's only one guarantee in money, and that is that things will get more expensive, because when things get less expensive, you begin to realize the cycle and the downward spiral that can start to cause over a long-term trajectory. Again, look at Argentina, 150% inflation. Their currency is losing its purchasing power. So how will this concept of inflation impact your plan today? Your future is going to be impacted by inflation. Let's discuss some numbers, and I think these numbers are extremely interesting as you start to identify the difference between 1983, let's say when your parents were probably born, and 2023 when you are entering your adulthood and entering how you start to identify money. In 1983, the average income nationwide was around $25,000, $24,850. So let's call it $25,000 just for purposes. The average income in 2023 is around $76,000. That's an increase of over 200%. Seems pretty good, right? Well, what we have to be able to compare along with our income is what is our expenses. Yes, more money, 200% more is coming in, but now how much more is going out? Well, let's look at how much it costs to live in 1983 versus 2023 and begin to identify exactly what this term inflation is going to impact your plan and your future. So in 1983, the average home price was around $75,000. Can you guess how much the average home price across America is in 2023? Almost $430,000. That is an increase of almost 500%, going from $75,000 to almost $430,000. So yes, you made more money, but that home you want to live in is going to be more expensive. Look at healthcare. 1983, it was about $1,500 a person a year. In 2023, you'll see your healthcare costs rise all the way to almost $7,000 a year. $1,500, $200 a month, $7,000. Ooh, that's more 500 plus a month in healthcare. As we look at that increase, you begin to see and start to understand how big of an impact this is going to be. And now we talk about college. How much do you think college prices have increased in the last 40 years? This is the most drastic example. It's going to connect to our current event around student loans. This is a subject and a topic that should be debated in your classroom because, yes, many need to go to college, but no, not everyone needs to go to college. As we look at this 4-year college degree, back in 1983, you could get a 4-year college degree for $4,000. That should sting for any of you currently in college, recently graduated, or with student loans, to think for about $1,000 a year they were going to what we all say is an essential part of your plan, going to college. Today in 2023, the amount for a 4-year college went from $4,000 all the way up to $104,000 on average. That's for a 4-year degree. 4,000 to 104,000. That is up over 2,500% in 40 years. You go back to your income having increased 200%, up to $75,000 a year on average, and you look at the debt that is created to go and get that kind of income. You need to begin to discuss how inflation is impacting what is even our most tangible questions like, is college for me? As you look at this topic, as you look at this subject, you ask questions for your classroom. Your income has risen 200% and the cost of college over 2,000%. What do you think it says about the value of a college degree today? Do you agree or see the value of a college degree having increased 2,000% in the last 40 years? Or do you see the expense and the cost and the debt that goes along with your college decision as being no longer as valuable? And you are going to look into an alternative solution for your financial plan and career. Question number 2. Are there people who make good financial decisions by not going into debt for college and instead learning a trade or going straight into the professional world? They value and weigh their opportunity cost. Is it or can it be seen as a positive to totally remove your financial plan from college? Is that a good decision or a bad decision in today's world? That is the debate and the question for you in your class. Third, the Bureau of Labor Statistics measures inflation through CPI, the Consumer Price Index, where the CPI is going to evaluate the cost of 80,000 goods and services that consumers purchase compared to the same goods and services in another year. So take 80,000 different goods, services, products that you and I purchase, put it in what is theoretically a giant basket. Now that basket is going to be seen and measured and valued. What does that basket cost in 2023? What did it cost in 2003? What did it cost in 1953? Based on how much it cost and dividing it by the other years, you will see the rise in this concept of inflation. So as we understand, CPI is the measurement of what you and I purchase on a day-to-day year. Comparing it to other years is how we get the inflation percentage. If you were to take the total cost in one year and divide it by the total cost in another, you will see the interest rate percentage increase or decrease. When people say CPI rose 5% this year, they are telling you inflation rose 5%, and inflation is going to impact your plan. Why? The reality is that inflation will impact you more than any tax. Let me say that again. Inflation will impact your financial plan more than any tax. That 5% increase in inflation we just discussed would be like an income tax of 120%. Your financial plan will be impacted by inflation, arguably more than anything else. The Federal Reserve is managing and trying to see an inflation of 2% increase each year. Once again, they believe that will be enough growth while keeping prices stable. If you only took one thing away from the idea of inflation, it should be this. You truly must fight inflation in your financial plan today. It means that your money is creating a better return than inflation. How do you fight? Your money is creating a better return than inflation. For example, if inflation is at that Fed Reserve's 2%, then your money must be earning at least, if not more than 2%, or you are losing money each year. Why in today's financial world you can no longer just be a saver and throw money into a bank account is because inflation in years of 4, 5, 6% inflation, you still need to have money working for you beyond that to be earning and creating more money, or else you are just losing money. Inflation is such a massive subject and topic that we're going to discuss it throughout the money vehicle journey. But for now, accept that you will need to fight off this inflation monster by not just earning, not just going and working for and earning money, but also creating money where money is starting to work for you. Speaking of earning versus creating, that is the focus of our next episode on the Money Vehicle Movement podcast. For now, let's recap some of those conversations you can have amongst your classroom. What was the measurement of inflation called, and what did it do? The measurement of inflation, yes, the Federal Reserve measures it, but what is that 80,000 products and services in that basket? And what does it do? How does inflation impact your financial plan? Question number 2 for your class. How do you think inflation is going to impact your financial plan today and the financial plan of your future? Question 3, last question. Why should or shouldn't you go to college after understanding inflation costs? Income has risen 200% and the cost of college over 2,000%. What do you think this says about the college decision today, the value of a college degree? Are there people who make good financial decisions by not going to college and avoiding the debt, and instead going directly into the professional world? We appreciate you investing in yourselves, and we appreciate you learning the language of money. Thank you for investing in your greatest asset. If you want to keep learning how to drive your money vehicle, make sure to subscribe to the Money Vehicle Movement podcast. Until our next pit stop together, stop working for money and start making money work for you.